And let me tell you what's going on. All right. So the name of what I'm up to tonight is the hallucinations we invest in and what it costs us. Okay. And thank you. Thank you for all of you who have taken the time to provide questions or just stating, sending your responses to the questions that we asked you. I really appreciate that. And these are statements that I'll be addressing directly. Okay. There's 5 of them. Saying he'll meet, knowing he won't, he doesn't, validates my thoughts. That he would reciprocate my love languages the way I have been attending to his. The mutual desire and effort to learn spouse's needs. Being proposed to, so many beautiful settings, and it hasn't happened yet. That reminded me of my imaginary Barbie and Ken weddings as a child. And then there was a question, what hallucinations or delusions do men invest in? It seems much more of a feminine proclivity. So we'll investigate that. And these are some statements that we may have time to unpack. And I mean unpack, because they're much thicker than one would think. And so I don't know if we'll get to them. When I acted like a girlfriend, and then he pulled away. And then we became friends. Using all of your tools to encourage partner to help around the house, and he still doesn't. That if I've heard back from you every time I've texted, that the next time will be the same. She goes on to say, I don't picture it so much as I have come to know that I can rely on a man through my interactions with him. Oh, that's a biggie. I was picturing that this person would let me know if there was a problem. And another one, a fabulous partnership with a man. So someone who is picturing a fabulous partnership with a man. So those last ones are ones that, I mean, they're rich. But I'm going to try not to fire hose you. And I think this topic is critical. If we don't pay attention to our hallucinations, if we're not aware of them as hallucinations, which I'll talk about that in a moment, we're going to, oh my gosh, the cost is so high in time, in energy, in false hope, in going without what we really need. I'll add to that list on the other side. So the first thing I want to do is just distinguish, and you can't do this too much. So if you've heard me talk about this before, please don't tune out with your brain saying, oh, I've already heard this, or oh, I already know this. Brains are designed to do that to save energy, but once they tune out, they don't know what they've tuned out. Just like once you have a committed state of mind and your brain tunes out everything it considers irrelevant, it doesn't give you the list ahead of time. Is your wife's voice irrelevant? Is your child crying? Irrelevant. Is a horn blaring? Irrelevant. It doesn't like give you a list that you get to check off. It just decides what's irrelevant and screens it out and only filters in what it thinks is relevant to what you've committed to. If only we were the ones that got to choose. Yikes. Okay, so the difference between imagination and hallucination. First of all, what's not different about them is you're dealing with something that isn't real. When you're imagining, you're dealing with something that isn't real. When you're hallucinating, you're dealing with something that isn't real. They're both not real. The problem is that what we're imagining, we know isn't real. We may even be using our imagination to create, to feel into something, to, if I had it all my way, what would I ask for? What would I do this weekend if I had it all my way? Right? It's a great way to use your imagination to get clear about something that matters. As long as we know we're using our imagination. hallucinations, we're not using. Hallucinations literally are using us. And I wish I were exaggerating. So the part of our brain called the amygdala, basically, if you drilled in, met in the middle between these two finger points, you would find the amygdala, and it's larger in women. It can be up to twice as active in women than in men, and men have one too. And what it's showing us, the hallucinations that it's presenting, often they can seem right, often it can seem reasonable. That's perfectly reasonable, or well, that's perfectly justifiable. They don't stand out as this is unthinkable. This would be foolish to invest in. Because we're not foolish. We wouldn't be fooled by something that seemed foolish. They seem reasonable. They seem real. They seem justifiable. And so I'm leading you up to this point where I want to present to you the most common types of hallucinations and 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 how they present themselves, because there seems to be consistent wording or phrasing. And I apologize, I don't know what the equivalent would be in other than English. I wish I did. It's a common problem amongst our graduates and the people who listen to or read the Queen's Code and want to interpret it for other people. I wish I knew all these words in other languages because they matter. So here are, well, it's three, maybe four types of common hallucinations in the ways that I've noticed they present themselves. So one type, and I'm going to put them together because they're so much alike, even though they seem different, that would be threats and opportunities. Threats and opportunities. Now, threats seem bad and opportunities seem good, but opportunities can be hallucinations. Opportunities can quickly turn into a threat when you're afraid if you're not up to it, or you don't have what it takes, or even if you think you have what it takes and it ends up that you don't, it ends up being a threat because you've wasted time and energy and resources on it. And that's something that is threatening. So threats and opportunities, what I've noticed is they present themselves as what ifs, or but what if? But what if something goes wrong? Ooh, what if he's the one? What if she's the one? Right? But what if it rains? But what if the fire makes it all the way to my house? But what if something has happened to this person and that's why they're late? What if? What if? What if? What if? Now, what to do with what ifs, I address in something called Thrive Your Life, which is at AlisonArmstrong.com. It's very inexpensive. It's an hour and 20 minutes that can totally change your life and have you invest in your imagination instead of in hallucinations. Okay. And it specifically addresses what I recommend doing with what ifs in a powerful way, in an effective way, instead of just be hooked by them and run around by them. So that's the first type, threats and opportunities. You can count it as one or two, whatever you want. I want to argue with you about it. Ideals. Ideals. Like the perfect way, the perfect thing, the perfect person in a perfect world. Well, ideally, I would be, my body would be, my career would be, my home would be, my relationship would be, ideally. It's a word that people say as if it's harmless. It's not harmless because these are hallucinations that we invest in. And one of the worst things that we do is we judge or evaluate other people against an ideal that hasn't been examined. And I mean, literally, this is one of the things we have people do all the time. Test to see if an ideal has snuck in there. Is this a standalone deal breaker? In our world, your ultimatums, your deal breakers, they are stand alone. Everything else could seem right, but if they're not that way, nope, I'm better off without them. I'm not better off with them. I'm better off without them. I've proven it to myself because every time I decide that doesn't have to be a deal breaker, look what happens to me. So ideals, what I've noticed how they present themselves are things like, well, if only. I mean, he's wonderful or she's wonderful. If only he would. If only she did. Right? If only there's an ideal that's sneaking in. Or I just wish, right? I just wish. There's so many things we just wish for. It reminds me of myself as a child after watching um, commercials before Christmas of all the toys. I just wish for every birthday and every Christmas that I asked for a pony. That what I really wanted was a pony, and there was this box, and I thought the box might have a saddle in it, and the saddle might mean there was a pony coming. No, but I did get my own personal television. Not that that really served me, but I didn't have any fights with my brothers anymore over what we were watching, which might have served my parents well. If only I wish, if I were more, right? If I were more this, if I were more that, if I weren't so much this, if I weren't so much that, oh, if I was just more of that, then this would definitely work out. I hope you guys are catching yourselves how many times you think it and how many times you say it and how many times other people say it to you. That's interacting with an ideal. And I would say it's a hallucination. They don't exist. And anything that appears ideal, look closer. Get a magnifying glass, get a telescope, get a friend. Could you take a look at this? It seems perfect. What am I missing? And not because we have to pick things apart, but just because we don't invest in these hallucinations. They cost too much. Some of you know one of the things I appreciate about my boyfriend is one of the first things he said to me. He said, I am perfectly imperfect, and I accept that about myself. Oh my gosh, I want to be that when I grow up. I want to be perfectly imperfect and be able to accept it. Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. But ideally, I would be perfectly perfect, but not too perfect, or at least don't seem too perfect, because other women will attack you if you seem too perfect. So you got to make sure you present a flaw, carefully curated flaw, in order to get their sympathy so they won't leave you for the line. Okay, but that's another conversation. But watch out dealing with ideals. They're deadly. They truly are, to one's self-esteem, to one's hopes and dreams, to one's relationships with other people and with ourselves. Okay, and then here's the one that I would say is even more common than how busy the amygdala is with its what ifs, even more common than our ideals. And please don't tune out when I say this word, because what matters is how it presents itself. So I think I'm going to do an opposite order. So this kind of common hallucination presents itself with a particular word, and it'll show up in all different ways. But it just should be like that. I shouldn't have to do anything. That should never happen for any reason. They should reciprocate. Any decent person should know that. Any logical person that should know that. Any smart person should know that. Everybody should know that. I can't believe they don't know that. They totally should know that. And they should do what they're supposed to do. And I shouldn't. have to ask for it. I shouldn't have to illuminate it. I shouldn't have to say the difference it'll make in my life. It's obvious. They should already know it. How many of you are guessing what we would call this type of hallucination? If you guessed expectation, you're right. Expectations. Number one most common hallucination. And the amazing thing about expectations is they breed. Expectations breed expectations. This was the thing that happened right here that I read, right? Right here. That if I've heard back from you every time I've texted, that the next time will be the same. So people meeting our expectations causes more expectations, could cause expectation that they're going to do that again or that they'll never do that again. What were the chances of that? People failing our expectations, that they'll always fail our expectations. Or if he really loved me, he'd double down. He'd double down and make an extra effort to meet my expectations. Or I clearly demonstrated how upset I was at their failure to meet my expectation. So obviously, they should try harder to meet it because I made it perfectly clear how upset was. Because we have an expectation that people will fulfill our expectations, especially if we make them clear how upset we were about it. They should do that. That's how it should work, right? I wish I could tell you I never thought any of these things myself or never behaved in these ways myself, but that would be a lie. That would be a hallucination that I am in fact ideal. I have no such hallucinations. I don't even have those ambitions. There's a relief. So if you look at these, right? If you look at these common types of hallucinations, and then look at what they cost us. How much wasted time? How much wasted time pursuing an ideal? How much wasted time trying to figure out a way to escape? But what if that happens, right? How much wasted emotion? Oh my gosh, anger and the anger spectrum and emotion goes zooming around the body, spends an enormous amount of energy, spends an enormous amount of hormones. That there's good reason why most men do everything they can to keep a grip on anger. It spends so much testosterone. The testosterone, the hormone of ambition, the hormone of short-term memory, the hormone of desire. We don't want to waste that on something like emotion, which can't be trusted in the first place. They're actually pretty smart about this. False hope. I mentioned this before. I am such a believer in hope. And we have something called Celebrating Love that talks about hope. Hope is the hero of passion and love. I am so for hope. Real hope, honest to goodness, reason to be hopeful. False hope. False hope. You've been asking for something for 10 years and you still think it might show up someday, especially if you keep asking the same way that you always have, or you keep telling people what you need, expecting something to happen, or you tell them how disappointed you are that they still haven't done that, expecting something to happen. The ways we normally go about things, we have false hope that they're going to work one day. And especially we get caught up in if they cared about us enough, it would work, or if they loved us enough, they would work, or if they respected enough, this would work. And then we compare ourselves to an ideal, and if only we were more or less of something, then they would love, care, and respect us enough. Round and round and round and round. And it prevents us from being effective, which passionate wouldn't be the right word about it. I'm determined to be effective. And ruthless about being effective. Um, Another thing is it costs us not pursuing what we really need. If we spend too much on false hope, we actually won't fully invest ourselves in what it takes to get what we really need. This is related to the statement that I said where I might be able to unpack. Using all of your tools to encourage, I'm going to assume they mean my partner, to encourage my partner to help around the house, and he still doesn't. The only place I teach people how to encourage men is in a smile. That if you want a man to approach you, smile and keep smiling till he makes it all the way in front of you. The more intrigued he is by you, the more interested he is in who is that person, the more encouragement he's going to need. I would also say I would focus on encouraging a man if you want a second date with him, because he doesn't know you want a second date with him. And if you want a second date with him, you have to tell him, I would love to see you again. Please, I'm not kidding. If something happens and you disappear for 3 months, when you get back, still reach out. I might be busy, but I won't punish you. The more men care about you, the more they're interested in you, the more they think, wow, there's something special about her, the more encouragement they need. But that's the only place I use that, to encourage someone to help around the house. I would ask. I would ask for help around the house, and I would ask it effectively. I would use everything we teach in the Queen's Code. And by the way, please, the audiobook, let me read it to you. I'll get the inflection just right so you'll know exactly what is meant by the men and women in the Queen's Code, the fictional men and women in the Queen's Code. Okay, what else does it cost us? Well, I actually just addressed this. Failing by telling instead of asking. Some of you may have seen the interview that I did with Ellen Fisher on YouTube. The title begins with the Queen's Code. And it's an hour and 37 minutes long. It felt like Ellen was mining for gold. And it was so fun because so much of her personal experience was involved. And one of the replies on YouTube was, I've told men what I need. And they've told me that I'm too needy. And it went on. And I can't count on them for anything. Well, nobody likes to be told. Rub my back. Make the bed. Even children do everything they can to escape that. Nobody interacts well with being told. Ask, like truly ask without, an axe that's going to drop if they say no. It's something I've taught women for years. If he can't say no, he can't say yes. Really. If there isn't space to say no, you're not going to get a sincere yes. And the worst thing is when there's no space to say no and we don't let up until someone says yes, we come to believe that people don't have integrity. Because it was a fake yes. It was a get off my back yes. And we caused those. Again, a cost of a hallucination that things should happen for the reasons that we think they should happen. So, for example, one of the things I said we might be able to unpack is reciprocate. Where did it go? Oh, it was one of the things I said I would do, that he would reciprocate my love languages the way I have been attending to his. So I have I have gotten so much from studying women. I've got as much from studying women as from studying men. I never would have studied women if men hadn't pointed things out to me and then had me look and see why didn't we know this? Why don't we notice this? And there are so many things that are valid in men's behavior and thought processes and the way that they do things that we never come to appreciate them because we only think ours are. And reciprocity would be an example of this. So for most women, appreciation, a currency of appreciation, and I use that word on purpose, there are many currencies of appreciation, and it's important to find out what people's currency is, because if you appreciate them in their currency, a little goes a long way. If you appreciate in something that isn't their currency, no amount even registers. It's it's like I was trying to get the car wash to work when it wanted $4 worth of quarters, and I gave it $3 worth of quarters and one Canadian loonie, and it would not give up the water. Oh my gosh, it was so funny how hard I tried to get it to do it, but it was not. It's currency. And we often are trying to appreciate people in our currency instead of theirs. And we miss the mark, and we spend a lot of energy because we're hallucinating that this should work instead of that we shouldn't have to ask, or that what I want will work for the other person. And reciprocity is interesting because many women show appreciation, right? Appreciation means to appreciate means to increase the value of. So we'll show that we value something by reciprocating, and we'll be precise about it. You made me a beautiful meal, a beautiful meal. Well, a meal. I love beautiful meals too, but a beautiful meal, and I'm going to show my appreciation by making you a beautiful meal. This is natural. I listen to you talk for half an hour. Now you listen to me talk for half an hour. Your turn. And I expect you to tell me when it's my turn and to know to do that. We teach women to listen to men. Women are shocked when they start listening and not interrupting. Men talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And when they're done talking, we've noticed how much time has passed, and we expect that now they're going to listen to us talk. Now they're going to ask us questions, and they're going to listen to us talk for 47 minutes because we listened to them for 47 minutes. And we're shocked when they don't. Why? Because for men, how men show appreciation boils down to take and use. Take and use. You know he appreciated the sandwich because he ate it. You know he appreciated being listened to because he talked. To them, it's very simple. It's if then. It's very simple. Take and use. This is why men they stop complimenting women. They stop telling their wife, who they think is gorgeous, that she's gorgeous or that she's beautiful or whatever the word is that might ring her bell. Men stop doing that. Why? Because women won't take and use the compliment. What does he want you to use it for? To brighten up, to be happy, to feel, to look like you feel beautiful, like you got it, that you are. They want to make your life better. Take the compliment and use it to make your life better. What do? We either dodge the compliment, we tell them why they're wrong. I couldn't possibly be beautiful, not with fill in the blank. Or the funniest thing is when we're like, oh, you're beautiful too. We reciprocate precisely. It all falls apart. But this is all a function of the hallucinations. We're invested in these hallucinations that what works for us should work for them. That how we operate is how everybody operates. And you can't even make this assumption between two women. can't learn about women in general, apply it to yourself in specific, and then think your specifics are going to apply to another. It's why I have to stay curious no matter what. It seems like, or I just learned this thing about appreciation. It seems like how you feel the most appreciated is by this. Can you verify or clarify? Am I right? I mean, this would be the thing to do. This goes back to the thing about that I've heard back from you every time I've texted that the next time will be the same. Well, if you want something to be the same, we have to move out of the domain of expectation and into the domain of accountability. So in these few weeks that we've been interacting with each other, every time I've texted you, you've texted me back within this period of time. Is that something that it would be all right to count on you for? And if I haven't heard from you, reach out, wondering if you're okay. Or is that something that you wouldn't have me count on for? This is the domain of accountability. Instead of inferring that you can count on somebody by their past behavior or inferring that you can count on them because of the other things they do, well, this goes with that. So I'm sure they'll be like that. If you see someone be generous in one area and infer this is a generous person, they're going to be generous with everything. Big mistake. Generosity is tied to abundance, what we perceive as having an abundance of. That's what allows for authentic generosity. You may see that they have an abundance of something and think they're going to be generous with that too, but not if they don't perceive it that way. So asking, checking, wow, you're really generous with your knowledge about technology. Is there anything else you enjoy being generous with? Or you could even ask, would you be able to be generous with your time in helping me solve a different kind of problem that takes a different kind of muscles? Verifying, clarifying. We have to keep blasting the hallucinations, whether it's the but what ifs or in a perfect ideal world, or it just should be like that. If you didn't trust any of those, now here's a strong statement for you. If you didn't trust all those different kinds of hallucinations, you could trust people more. You could trust men more. You could trust women more. You could trust young people more if you didn't trust those hallucinations, if you poked holes in them, if you poked holes in your own hallucinations of what you think you can expect. I notice I'm expecting this of you. Tyler, I'm remembering Dan asked me a question a couple weeks ago. He asked me, when did my relationship with my father get good? I think that's how he put it, get good, because he knows how much I love my dad and how much my dad loves me. And, you know, his body's been gone for 2 years, but it hasn't dulled the debate. And he asked me when it got good. And he didn't know how long the answer was going to be because it was step by step by step, you know, realization, insight, transformation, all these step by steps. And the second step was when I asked him to meet with me. I think I was 22 years old, and I told him the truth about how I had been since a teenager. And, you know, my dad was a trust fund baby, as they would call it, right? So he got money from a trust fund from his parents every year, as did his siblings. And his lifestyle was based on it. And so I told my dad, I said, I noticed that I'm just waiting for you to die, and then I'll have your money. And I'm wondering, how would you like me to think about your money? Now that I'm aware of how I've been thinking about it, how would you like me to think about your money? And my dad said, he said, well, I have a life insurance policy for you and your brothers. And other than that, I'm going to spend it all. It set me free. It set me free to go have a life, to go make my own way, to not wonder, is my dad going to fall off his sailboat, in the middle of the Molokai Channel at midnight in a thunderstorm. I'd been there when we were like that. It was one of the best things. I became aware of my own expectation and I confessed it and I verified it with the person who could tell me the most about it. And you know what? My dad told the truth. He spent it all. Now he lived about 30 years longer than he expected. So he had a lot of opportunities to do that. It's like I didn't expect to live this long. I've outlived my money. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. It was just, way to go, Dad. Good job. Okay, I'm going to see the things that you wrote and see if what else I may want to say. Other things our hallucinations cost us. Uh, ugh, loss of love. Our hallucinations cost us loss of love. The things we expect of people and the things that we're picturing. But what if? But what if? We have so many nasty, but what ifs? And then we treat them as if they're true. We're suspicious. I was talking to someone just yesterday who thought infidelity was inevitable. No, it's not. No. And even thought that men have no interest in monogamy. You have to force them into it. That's so not true. There's so many men, it's their happy place. Tyler, I'm sure you've heard me talk about this. Men like department stores. They want to walk in one door and it's got everything they need. And it's called a wife. Yay, the best wife. She's my department store. There's a coffee shop and a snack bar. And there's playfulness and there's nurturing and there's friskiness and there's support and there's telling me the truth I don't want to hear but save my life. I mean, it's a department store. Why would someone want to keep going to 12 different places, try to get everything they need? It's inefficient. So yes, so loss of love, a loss of admiration. Our expectations cost us admiration. I have so much admiration. I have so much admiration for men and so much admiration for women because I don't expect them to not have the human instincts and gender hormones that they do. I can be amazed at their victories of human spirit. I can be in awe of their character because I'm not disparaging it by an expectation that's real. It's such a hallucination. There's a loss of intimacy. Our being wound up in our hallucinations and ideals and in the expectations and the what ifs and the threats and opportunities, there's a loss of intimacy. You're sitting across from someone you think is everything on your list. This is the one. I'm just sure this is the one. Unlikely that you're present and available to see who that human being is. And you wonder why they don't want to see you again. You're just sure they were the one. They were everything on the list. Male or female. And I already said the biggest cost is being effective. We're not effective because we're not interacting with what's real. We're interacting with hallucinations and expecting real results. And they don't happen. What happens is what most people have. Can you see why I was passionate about talking about this topic? This is what I'm going to talk about this month. Okay, now I'm just going to double check. We have a few more minutes. I was picturing that this person would let me know if there was a problem. People only let you know that there's a problem if you're someone who's safe to tell that there's a problem too, which is rarely assumed. And so so many people blow up and argue with somebody presenting there's a problem here, that they give up. Why waste that energy? Just go away. Just go away. And then there's other aspects of that. Like we've discovered that for a man, asking a woman to change would be dishonorable. So he assumes that what she's already providing is what she's going to provide. It would be dishonorable to ask her to be different. So they don't let us know there's something they need. They just figure that it can't be had. Can you see how that's another kind of hallucination? Thinking you can expect something and thinking you can't expect something. That it's just not going to be available. A fabulous partnership with a man. Partnerships are from another planet. They are not of Earth origin. They're my passion. I've spent a jillion hours on it, and everything that a partnership requires is the opposite of human instinct. The opposite, in opposition to. So that's a hallucination. That partnership is, we just have to find the right person and we can have a partnership. When I acted like a girlfriend and then he pulled away, that's such an interesting concept. When I acted like a girlfriend, that there's such a thing called a girlfriend, and there's a way that girlfriends act. And if I act that way, certain things are going to happen. A young man told me about this. He'd always loved this girl. Since he was 7 years old, he loved this girl. And now they were teenagers. And she kept asking him to be her boyfriend. And he shied away from that. But it's meant so much to her. He finally said, okay, I'll be your boyfriend. And that was the end of their friendship, because he didn't know that boyfriend was a job description. And there are now all these things he was expected to do that he hadn't been asked about, that he hadn't agreed to, and he didn't know what difference they would make, and he wasn't willing to spend his life on that. All these places he was supposed to show up, and all these things he was supposed to do now, because of a label. So when Dan called me his girlfriend, I said, what? Said, yeah, I asked my daughter if she'd heard about my girlfriend. I'm like, what girlfriend? What do you mean, girlfriend? I didn't say I was your girlfriend. What is it? What is a girlfriend responsible for? We didn't talk about this. What would I be accountable for? No. I practice partnership. Partnership starts with accountability. What am I going to be held to account for? Not if I haven't agreed to it. And before that, Tyler, I was interacting with men, and oh, it was so gross, because they'd say, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And I'm sorry, I'm sorry, sorry, I didn't call you. I'm sorry, 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 I didn't text you back right away. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I'm like, have you ever made an agreement to do any of the things you're saying you're sorry for? Because in my world, if we haven't talked about it and you haven't agreed to it, I have no right to hold you to account for it. I think they thought I was like an alien from another planet. Yes, planet partnership. So after my big blow up about calling me a girlfriend, he's like, okay, calm down now. You said you please. Okay, this is what it meant. By me calling you my girlfriend, I was conveying to my family that you're important to me. Oh. Okay, but as long as it means there isn't something I'm supposed to do, we can see if I can desensitize myself to that. I've gotten better. It's almost 4 years. I don't twitch when he calls me his girlfriend. But boyfriend, that's so weird. He's not a boy, he's a man. Okay, so I'm going to just check these off. Saying he'll meet, knowing he won't, he doesn't, it validates my thoughts. Well, That should be the opposite. If you're not going to hold him to account for doing what he says, and yet you try again and you keep giving him another chance and another chance and another chance, you're just trafficking in lies. I would be less tolerant of it. Don't say it if you don't mean it. That means what they say and says what they mean. That's one of the things you got to be if you're going to be in my life. So hallucinating that something's going to be different while still expecting it to be the same, but putting your energy into it. The mutual desire and effort to learn spouse's needs. This is so different because of women's compulsion to be pleasing in order to be protected and provided for. Near as I can tell, the only place a man wants to be pleasing is in bed. That's where he cares about being pleasing. Wants to please his wife. But it's a short word for pleasure. He wants to give her pleasure. We pay an inordinate amount of attention to preferences. We talk about this in something called connecting through conflict. We get way wound up about preferences. They're precious to us. And we expect our sensitivity and catering to preferences to be something that other people do, especially men. And they're not wired that way. Being proposed to, so many beautiful settings, and it hasn't happened yet. Mostly because what a marriage requires and what men are looking for in a person to marry is largely hallucination. It has nothing to do with what's true. We talk about the 12 things that makes a woman the right person in understanding love and commitment. And not a single one of them is love. And we think love is all you need. I love you. You love me. Let's get married. Oh, I said this to someone the other day. We use the M word and the D word too quickly. The married word and the divorce word. We say them both too quickly. What hallucinations or delusions do men invest in? It seems much more of a feminine proclivity. Well, we did a whole study of this several years ago about masculine meant to be and masculine the one. So it doesn't have to be a man, but anytime again, this is hallucination and ideals, that all I have to do is find the right marketing person and my business will succeed. I just have to find the right CEO. I just have to find the right mortgage interest rate. There's this looking for the one, that when I find the one, it's all going to turn out. And the belief in the one is both a hallucination, I suggest, and a belief in scarcity, that there's only one. And that belief in scarcity has us try to make something be the one, or make someone be the one, and hang on for too long in false hope that we'll get our needs met, and they're never going to be met. But yes, human beings are gamblers. We're gamblers by nature. If you go on a date, you're a gambler. If you have sex, you're a gambler. If you're an entrepreneur, you're a gambler. If you marry an entrepreneur, you're a gambler. Human beings are gamblers, and the hallucination is this is the one that's going to turn out. This is it. It's going to be this role, this hand, this investment. This is going to be the one that turns out, and not enough due diligence. Hallucination prevents us from investigating. That would be a good one. Trade in your hallucination for investigation. That would be profit. All right, I'm going to end it there. If you have more questions you want to post on our Instagram, page. We keep track of those. They're fed to me. And that's how I come up with these things for you all and figure out all these things that you're writing to me and asking me about. What do I have something meaningful to say? And then I commit to these. And you may know we do this around here about every 6 weeks. And then we post it on our YouTube channel, Alison Armstrong Videos. So until next time, bye, everybody.